What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be going through the first build video of Subitech's awesome Subaru STI. So we're going to be going through some audio installation with you guys, so he'll take you through exactly what we're going to be going through and the process behind it right now.
Okay, for the record, it's an 04 Subaru WRX STI. We're going to be installing a double-din deck. It's an AVH, Pioneer AVH 470, I believe, 4700. I'm just going to start with a little disclaimer. We are by no means audio experts, car audio experts, but we have installed quite a few components in that field before. So we've picked up a couple tricks that we're going to share with you guys. Let's go through with what the deck comes with. Obviously it comes with the double-din deck. It's got a cardboard cover over top of the screen right now. You can't really see all the connections in the back here. We'll go through those in more detail later. Comes with its harness. It's kind of a mess, but that's the harness. That's the connector that plugs into the back of the deck. There's no connector at the back of it. We'll go through that in a second. It comes with a USB extension cable. You can run this to your glove box, to your center console for plugging in like your iPod or your iPhone. Comes with some screws, fasteners. You may not need these if you can use your factory ones that are on your factory deck. With the remote. And it also comes with your Bluetooth microphone. Okay, which is very important, and we'll go over good locations for that later. Now, one other thing you're going to need to purchase to install the deck to your car, unless you plan on cutting your factory harness and hardwiring the deck's harness in, which I don't recommend, because if you plan on changing your deck, you're basically limited to the same deck that you had before, is this. This is basically a manufacturer-specific harness that we will be wiring in and connecting to the harness that came with the deck. So we're going to go through making all those connections work. To do that, you're going to need a couple tools. These are wire strippers and crimpers. There's crimpers at the bottom here. I don't know if you can see that, but there's crimpers at the bottom. Also, you can use strippers like this that are really quick. You just put the wire in there, you choose your gauge of wiring, and that's it. Simple as that. Strips the wire. And you're going to need your butt end connectors. These are butt end connectors that you use basically just to crimp the wires together. This is our favorite method of doing this. You can use solder. I've seen it done before. I've done it before. I'm not a big fan of solder. This is what solder looks like. I don't like it. I don't think it's as reliable of a connection. That's my personal opinion. I know everybody's got their own ways of doing things, but that's how you do that. And you're going to want this, some shrink tubing to put over top of your connections. And to shrink it, you need a heat gun. You can use a lighter or a blow dryer if you don't have a heat gun, but this is the proper tool. So yeah, we're going to start getting the process here, film everything, and we'll be right up next. Take it easy. Alright guys, this is our assembly of the harness portion of the video. This one is our Pioneer harness, and this is our manufacturer specific harness that we purchased separate from the deck. I'm just going to go through the wiring and what they do. If you guys already know all this stuff, skip to the next part about assembling the harness, and if you already know that, skip to the part about putting it in the vehicle. So, the nice thing about this harness is it actually has writing on the actual wires that what they do. For example, the white wire, this yellow wire here is the battery constant, 12 volts. So that supplies constant power. The red wire right here, this wire is the ignition switch. So that basically tells the deck to turn on when the ignition switch is turned on. The black wire is a ground. We'll get a little bit more into the ground in a second. And the orange wire is your illumination. So basically those wires, these 4 wires, and the blue is, I believe, I'm not sure what the blue one does. to be honest. But it's here, and there is a blue one on this one, and it says remote control. Not too sure what that's for, but it doesn't look like it's necessary. Honestly, to run a deck, you need your speakers, you need your power, your ground, and your ignition switch. That's what matters. The extra stuff might just be features. So you have a white, two whites. One's got a line down and a black line. The one with the line is actually the negative to the speaker. So you got your positive and your negative, and this one is the left front speaker. And then the same goes for the grays. You got the gray, you got your purple, and you got your green. Those are your 4 speakers, power, and grounds. So let's just talk about the ground really quick. The deck, the one that came with the deck, the harness that came with the deck, it has a long ground. That's in case your factory wiring, mostly on older cars, if it doesn't have a ground wire. So that means you can just put like a little terminal on here and basically connect it somewhere on the dash that is body ground. But in our case, we don't need to do that. We're going to cut this wire short and just wire it straight into the deck, the wiring harness for the car. This long green wire that looks very annoying is a parking brake wire. So this deck has the capability of watching movies and video. So this is basically a safety feature for this wire, that you need to have your parking brake enabled while watching a movie. So if you try to put a video on, it won't play unless this wire has, I believe, ground. Not 100% sure, but it is switch sensitive. So it actually has to see that switch, that motion of the parking brake going up or something switching to ground. So I'm not too sure what I'm going to do. I'm just going to wire this towards my parking brake and leave it there. I have no intent of watching videos inside my car, but for somebody who is, you may want to look a little bit more into that wire. The other wires that the deck harness comes with that aren't going to be used in this case is the reverse gear signal. This is for a reverse or a backup camera. And there is a mute wire here, which I'm probably not going to use. And the system control, I'm not too sure about that. But every other wire will mate up nicely to this harness. So let's get into that right now. Alright guys, we're in the car. Time to take it apart. So, easiest way that I found to take this apart, if you don't have any tools that are safe to not damage your interior, like they're basically plastic interior removing tools, I did find a little cheat. You're going to remove this little cup holder. There's 2 Phillips head screws in here. Once you remove this, you can actually get your hands on the bezel that goes around the stereo, and you can pull it off with your fingertips and you don't need to get anything in there. Once you're in there, these are just held on with clips, this piece. There's 2 connectors, and on mine, since it has automatic climate control, there is a tube that goes to this bezel that needs to be removed. Just pulls off, I believe. From there, there's 4 Phillips screws holding on the deck, and we'll go through that right now. Alright guys, so we got everything apart here, as you can see. First thing I want to show you, this is the cup holder. There's the 2 spots where the screws go in, the one at the bottom there, and then one there. So I want to talk about the bezel. It's held in just by clips. You can see these, make sure you still have these on here. There should be 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. They sometimes can fall back in here, so be careful. Then there's the 2 connections on the heater controls here, 2 push clip connectors, and then there is your little tubing for the thermostat. Only correction I need to make is there's actually 6 screws holding in the deck. I can show you right here. 3 on the right side and then 3 on the left side. There is 1 connector on my deck I only found, and then there is the antenna. Make sure you remove that. That should just push right into the new deck. And then there is a ground wire that actually goes on the side of the deck that will actually transfer onto the new deck, because this bracket here is going to get put on our new deck, so then that will still be used. And we're going to go over that in just a second. Yeah, the only thing I had issue with was getting the antenna wire out. It was actually kind of a bit of a pain in the butt. I had to use a pair of pliers to get it out. So now we're going to go over transferring the brackets on the old deck onto the new deck, so it installs into the car perfectly. Okay guys, we got the 2 decks here. This is the old one, and this is our new one. So the next step is to transfer these brackets on the side. They're held on by 4 Phillips screws, each bracket, so 8 in total. And they are specific as to which side goes where. So as you can see, that says left hand here, left hand side for the left, and right hand side for the right. So we're just gonna go over and transfer those really quick. Okay guys, so we got our brackets off the old deck and we're about to put them on the new deck. By the looks of it, it seems like everything is gonna line up pretty well perfectly. We may only be able to put 3 out of 4 bolts on, but that's fine. The only thing I found was that the bolts that were, or the fasteners that were holding it on to my previous deck aren't gonna be long enough to thread into this deck. So luckily Pioneer supplied us with their fasteners, so hopefully they will work. Now you don't want these bolts to be too long, because if they go really deep into the deck, you're gonna have issues with it shorting things out or potentially, well, damaging the deck. So you want to make sure you're not just grabbing any old tool screw out of your toolbox and just threading it in, because if it's too long, it's going to cause problems. Honestly, if you got 2 out of 4 in, you're good, but I think the 3rd one will line up, so we're going to put the 3rd one in. Now the decks actually have different spots where you could put them in. There's like probably a couple different layouts here. I found the one that lines up perfectly because my brackets actually have a bend on the top, so it's got to rest tightly against the top. So once you get them in, just test fit the deck in the car to make sure that it's sitting properly. You don't want it like sticking out of the dash awkwardly or too far in. Most of the time, most cars I've done, you don't have too many issues, but I haven't done any fancy cars or anything really in depth. It's just been basic stuff. So now we got the brackets on the new deck. So now we're gonna test it in the dash, see how it looks. All right, so now that we got our brackets all installed, we are gonna just test fit the deck in, make sure it sits properly. And you don't need to connect any of the wires, just leave them here. I know where they go and what they do. So let's just toss the deck in really quick. Make sure it sits in flush and properly. All right, so that's basically how it's gonna sit once it's in there. Like if I don't hold tension on there, it's not gonna sit properly. I don't have the screws in yet, so that's fine. Let's put the bezel on, you don't have to put it on fully, but just get it in there and see and make sure it's not like the deck's not sticking out too far or too deep. So I'm just gonna hold pressure on the deck a little bit. So that's how it's gonna sit. That's pretty much perfect. Like that worked out really good. Normally you have to modify the bracket a little bit, but that's good. Like that's in there. Nice. So now we can go through the connections. So let's take this back out. Out of the way. I'm going to go over the connections. So, this is the connector that goes into the factory deck. Now we need to connect our harness that we made up over there to this, and then from there that will plug into our new deck. The only other thing that needs to get connected to the new deck is the antenna wire and a ground on the side that goes into our one bracket. And other than that, that's it. Everything else here is for the heater controls. So let's go get our harness. Alright, sorry guys, I forgot to mention a couple things. We still have our microphone for our Bluetooth to install, and we still have our USB wire that's going to go to our glove box. Okay, so there we go. That's going to just sit in our glove box, and this is going to go to our deck. I'm going to just take a little bit of slack off. You want to make sure that the wires are not pinched in any way or going to be interfering with it, because a lot of the steel in the back of this dash is very sharp. So you got to be careful that it's not wedged in something that's going to get it cut. But that looks pretty clean there. And if you want, you can always put a zip tie it next to something in here. But you know what, I think it looks pretty clean back here already, so we should be good. The other thing is our our microphone. This is going to be a little bit more difficult because I'm not sure where I want to put it yet. I don't know if I just want to clip it up top here or if I want to hide it somewhere. I've heard of some guys hiding it inside their vents, but that may not work good for us. I'm not too sure yet. I think this just comes off here. So some people like to just clip it in here. But then if you got your AC blasting, like you're definitely gonna hear it through here. So I'm not too sure what I want to do with that yet. Alright guys, so let's just recap. We have our USB ran to our glove box. I'm not going to go too deep into detail on what I did with the microphone because I'm not sure if it's going to work. But what I did was there's a little pocket underneath the hazard switch that it literally just popped in nice and snug. So I'm going to leave it there. And I ran the wire back here and coiled up all the extra wire here, tied it up with zip ties nice and tight on both sides. USB, I didn't really need any zip ties. It sits in there pretty good. And now we're ready to put the deck back in. So this is our harness, and we have our long green cable here. I'm actually just going to put a zip tie on this and leave it in there for now. If I plan on using this deck for video later on, I will just cut the zip tie and utilize that wire. And then just to make it look clean, we'll just cut off the excess of the zip tie. It's like so. And that can just hang in there nicely like that. So this plugs in nicely to our factory harness. Oops, again. Like so. Give it a good tug, make sure it sits in there nicely. And then that can get pushed in. And there we go. So our 3 connections to put on, or sorry, there's 4 connections actually. We got these 2, our Bluetooth mic, our USB, and you can never forget the antenna, wherever it's hiding in here somewhere. But it's here. Just drop down. Yeah. If you don't plug in your antenna, you're not going to have your radio functions like your FM, AM. So let's get plugging in. When it's in place because there's little plastic dowels that need to line up. There's that side lined up and this side lined up. And that's it. We got those, so we're good to connect our screws. Alright guys, we got the deck turned on and powered up after we put our screws in. This is just to verify that there's no issues now, because we don't want to put everything back together and then find out, oh, it's not even powering up. So at least we know it powers up. we'll verify the sound and make sure all the speakers work after we get everything else back together. Alright guys, the deck's in. Protective layer off the screen is off. Let's power her up, make sure she works. Make sure the sound is good. I'm not too sure what the setup procedure is like on these, so obviously we're going to want English.
Macuero, it's already selected. Just hit the next on the top. No, the next on the top.
Oh wow, okay. I retarded here. Alright guys, thanks for watching. It's the new deck in the Subitech Mobile.
Now make sure you like, comment, hit that subscribe button if you want to watch any more upcoming videos that we have coming up.
Take it easy guys.